Feed me now! I'm starving. Give me food! Don't make me ask again. Please give this video a like and subscribe!
This is HBR News number 541, Cartel Craziness, French activist murdered, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I'm your host Brian. I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts Hannah Wallen and Dr. Ranmercam.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. On this week's HBR News, we're going to be talking about, let's say the temporary arrest of former Prince Andrew, the death of cartel leader El Mencho, a far-right activist is beaten to death in France, far-right in scare quotes, by the way, and more, so stick around, it's going to be a good time.
Okay, I know you told us not to react, but I just looked at the new cartoons, and they do seem kind of cursed.
A little bit, but it's for the people that, again, it's for I think the mobile. So in case somebody happens to come across it, but it does keep things a little bit more, let's say, active.
I will try and not look at them. I'm just going to look at the chat. I'm just hello chat. How are you?
See, this is why I do pop out chat. I don't see the cartoons at all right now.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, so be sure to also stick around for the patron show. And on today's patron show, we're going to be looking at a video. It's actually, so someone had AI write for them a female fantasy of a divorce scenario. Don't ask me why women are having divorce fantasies and they want them turned into stories that they can then, I guess, enjoy as fiction, but they do. And this one, well, let's just say it's not real, but I guess it's something that some people would have liked to have seen. So we're going to be looking at this in the patron show. Allison and I almost did a show on it, but then she decided we could probably just do a patron show. So hopefully you guys will be okay with that, and we'll check that out in the patron show. It should be entertaining either way. And if you want to join us for that, then you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and starting a subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord where you'll be able to watch all the additional content. And you can give it higher levels so you can be a part of the conversations themselves. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we've been yeeted from the internet, you can look for our archive content over at badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com, which is where all of our content lives. So with that all out of the way, let us get into today's stories. So first, we're going to do a follow-up on... I forgot. I do have one bonus story that I wanted to share. This happened last month, but we didn't know about it. So I'm going to tell you guys about Hot Wheels. Does anyone remember Hot Wheels?
Yeah.
Is real... Yes, Hannah?
The 8chan guy, right?
Yeah. Yes. So Frederick Brennan is his real name, American software developer and type designer who founded the image board website 8chan in 2013, died on January 10th, 2026, at the age of 31. His passing was confirmed on February 22nd, 2026, by the podcast I'm From the Internet, where he was a regular participant. He died in his sleep, according to his partner, Jay Brandsetter. Brandon initially launched 8chan as a free speech-focused alternative to 4chan, which later became a hub for extremist communities, including the Gamergate movement and the QAnon conspiracy movement, or at least that's what they're calling it. Obviously, QAnon is not a conspiracy. I don't know if you guys know, but he originally created 8chan as a free speech alternative to 4chan. And 4chan was going through this sort of this business that Reddit was going through. And it was because of Gamergate. So we're back at Gamergate again. Okay. And Hot Wheels created the 8chan page. But I don't know if you guys know this, But even though he originally was very much on the pro Gamergate side, he did eventually, and I'm not saying this is to sort of taint him or anything, but he did end up turning against the Gamergate side, or the sort of like, I guess what he would have called the far right or whatever. And he was very critical of, what he considered to be Gamergate later, as well as QAnon. And so he became like, sort of an opposition for a while towards the end. But despite that, I thought he's worth mentioning anyway and giving credit, because he was like a free speech warrior, at least at first.
I'm sure
Yeah.
someone got to him. I'm sure Mossad got to him. Allegedly in Minecraft, something like that. You can't be in charge of one of the chans and not have fucking Mossad coming out after you. I'm sure the same thing happened to Moot. When Moot eventually dies, we'll be like, yeah, there was that one little wrinkle in his legacy, but apart from that, it did fucking 4chan. So it needs to be remembered, hopefully, for that. But let's not forget, the chans have always been about free speech, so they're all going to get infiltrated by Mossad at some point, or someone or other. There's ups and downs.
You also have to remember, like, both he and Moot endured some things that you don't usually see other social media dealing with. People deliberately posted horrible illegal material on both of those websites, specifically to get them into trouble in order to get control over those websites. And it's not that type of material doesn't end up on other social media, just that it's you actually have to work your butt off to get rid of it, to try to report it, and it doesn't seem to receive the same response. Definitely not from the admins, and apparently not from the FBI either. So, but they paid attention to the chans, because that's a free speech environment. They paid attention when it was done to Gab as well, because that's a free speech environment. And I think that's part of why, like, there were rule changes and things like that on both of them that had to happen because of that. So, like, these guys, if they developed, different opinions about the different movements, whether it's right or left wing, whether it's Gamergate, the consumer side of Gamergate, and so on, it's probably because they went through some rather frightening experiences because of that. It's really not fun to have law enforcement approach you looking at you as a criminal, as opposed to, like a complainant or just someone on the street. But in regard to, did they ever come out and actually say who QAnon was, the individual?
No.
Because here's the thing, right? There was a truth, there was a set of facts that was covered up with regard to illicit activities and horrible abuses taking place that the elites were doing. And then there was Pizzagate, and there was QAnon. And those two things are not the same. And I really think that what happened with QAnon and Pizzagate happened specifically for the purpose of making people who were noticing and talking about the reality look crazy. I still hold that it was a psyop to silence people who were talking about what was really happening. And so far, the evidence that's come out, that's really more what it implicates about QAnon and Pizzagate than anything.
Yeah. Well, I thought I would just give this a quick mention. It wasn't one of the stories, but I learned about it, even though this happened a month ago. So, rest in peace, Hot Wheels. And yeah, I mean, I think that he was, despite, his I guess you could say, his shift in position later, I'm okay with like the stuff that he did for us, so I'm grateful. Um,
And it was wonderful that he gave people a place to talk.
yeah, yeah, ultimately. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Again, if you want to send a super chow at any point during the show, go to feedthebadger.com/just the tip. It's really the best way to send us a message because YouTube tends to, first of all, take like 30% off the super chats. So you're basically just giving Google money, which you can do if you want to. And the other thing is that not, sometimes the super chats get censored or something happens to them. You can also, if you're on Rumble, you can just send on Rumble because Rumble's totally awesome. And that's also an alternative. So, anyway, let's get into the story. So, we got to do a little bit of a catch up. We're going to talk about Prince Andrew really quick. So, on February 19, 2026, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, wow, that's quite the name. Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, the younger brother of King Charles III, was arrested by Thomas Valley Police at his home in the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, England. The arrest occurred on his 66th birthday and was on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This stemmed from recent revelations in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files, which allegedly showed that Andrew shared confidential UK government trade information with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein around 2010 during his tenure as Britain's special trade envoy, which was from 2001 to 2011. He was held in custody for approximately 11 hours at Aylsham police station, questioned and then
Aylsham.
released. Aylsham?
Aylsham.
Aylsham, okay. Aylsham police station, questioned and then released under investigation, meaning no charges have been filed yet, and the probe continues, including ongoing searches at properties like Royal Lodge in Windsor. The unprecedented arrest marks the first time in modern history that a senior member of the British royal family has been taken into police custody, intensifying scrutiny on the monarchy amid Andrew's long-standing Epstein ties. King Charles III responded by stating that, quote, "The law must take its course," end quote, emphasizing full cooperation with authorities and avoiding direct comment on his brother. Andrew has consistently denied wrongdoing related to Epstein, and while this development does not involve sexual misconduct allegations, which is like, kind of like the point of the story, because a lot of people are saying that it was, it has sparked widespread media coverage, public shock, and discussions about potential further fallout for the royal family, including calls for inquiries into his past role and spending.
Allow me, if you will, to simultaneously play devil's advocate and angel's advocate. In terms of angel's advocate, he's being arrested because of the trading of state secrets. That much can be ascertained from the recent illuminations, and that's what is vaguely entailed in the charge of misconduct in public office. For a few days, people in Britain were going, "Why hasn't Peter Mandelson been arrested? He did exactly the same shit." Anyone outside the UK is unlikely to know or understand who Peter Mandelson is. He's affectionately known as Mandy, by the way. He's kind of like the equivalent of Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld or Karl Rove or kind of Henry Kissinger. Well, Alistair Campbell is more like the Kissinger figure. But the point is, the shit the Bush administration was pulling off at the time is the same shit that the Labour Party was pulling off at the time, subverting every failsafe between peace and chaos so as to plunge the West into as many forever wars as possible. And Peter Mandelson felt that this was an apposite time to start revealing state secrets to the Jeffrey Epstein network in exchange for, well, that much is down to speculation. I'm going to have to do some kind of Barry Manilow medley so as to express this musically. Oh, Mandy, you traded your nation for handies from Ukrainian twinks. I haven't quite ironed out the details yet. Oh, Andrew, you something. I'm going to have to throw Copacabana in there as well as some kind of description of Epstein's Island. Yeah, in the group, soap opera manor.
Yep, that's very fitting.
That's where it's stashed when massage shills can cash in at the some. It's going to be epic. Don't worry about it. He's gonna be well good. But yeah, Peter Mandelson has also been arrested a couple of days ago, also under charges of misconduct in public office, which is another rare moment of some encouraging white pilling. Frankly, finally something is happening. Quite why the fuck Tony Blair hasn't been arrested is a confounding mystery. But presumably it's because he wasn't involved in the shenanigans that went on Epstein's Island. What went on Epstein's Island was, well, noncing, obviously, but it wasn't always direct noncing. Sometimes it was just entrapment through apparent noncing. The likes of Mandy and Andrew would turn up on the island for the sake of illegally trading state secrets, and then Epstein brought out the underage sex slaves and went, "Smile, you're on candid camera," and then boom, he's got them all in the palm of his hand, and he has everything he needs for his dead man's switch. Now, I'm not saying that Andrew or Mandy are not guilty of noncing. They very well might be, but there is a possibility that just because there's such naive, posh ponces, they went into this endeavor not expecting the apparent noncery. They only went in there to trade state secrets, and then the noncery was thrust upon them, and that doesn't excuse them from the crime of trading state secrets. People are out here demanding blood, demanding arrests for the crime of noncing. But that's because people are emotional creatures. They are fully or automatically preloaded to be deeply, viscerally disgusted by the crime of noncing. And in that red mist, they can lose sight of any other crimes. And that emotional red mist is what Epstein was using to his advantage. Like, you may think you can get away with betraying your nation, but, you know, people these days don't really give a shit about that, especially when they've been primed to hate their own nation anyway and not really give a shit when it's being sold off to the highest bidder. But what you'll never get away with is noncing. People actually care about 15-year-old girls in ways they'll never care about their national security and sovereignty. Sad but true. So you might think that this is some kind of Al Capone situation where they can't arrest Andrew or Mandy for the noncing, so they have to get them on a technicality like the fucking high treason. But, you know, it's actually very much the other way around. They're being arrested for betraying their nation, for the high treason. The noncing is just the catalyst that allows the arresting party to do this with the blessing of the public and its visceral bloodlust. And to repeat the devil's advocacy, it's very possible that Andrew was never even interested in fucking children. He might have never even realized that he was fucking children, but he was interested in betraying his nation, in sharing state secrets with a hostile foreign network. That is why he's been arrested. And that is why he should be arrested. Same with Mandy. Same with just about everyone else who turned up to that island. With some exceptions. I mean, especially Bill Clinton. I'm pretty confident he was there for the primary reason of fucking underage girls. He probably went back again and again so he could try out some even younger ones, allegedly in Minecraft, etc. I'm just saying, nonce is bad. Please do arrest the nonces. Please do lower them slowly into the wood chipper. But I expect nothing less for the treasonous traitors who were merely entrapped into alleged noncery because they are treasonous traitors. Look, I know you love children, guys. I get it. I don't hate them either, but I love my nation. I love your nation, whatsoever it might be. Well, with some exceptions. Children are the future, sure, but your nation is the past, the present, and the future. And if we continue to let it get undermined and usurped by foreign agents, well, then all the children are fucked. Literally and figuratively. And in Britain, that is presently what is happening. And that might not be a coincidence. In summary, yes, nonces are evil and they deserve nothing short of the wood chipper, but please understand there are bigger problems. Yes, bigger problems than that, like the world being destroyed from the top down. And the people responsible for that deserve the wood chipper too, from both ends, frankly. We can focus on both of these problems, the noncing and the treachery, but if you ignore the destruction of the world because you're so emotionally gripped by the alleged noncery, you're falling right into the trap that Epstein has set and is probably still setting, because in all likelihood he's still alive. Seems like a good bombshell on which to leave it. I'll let someone else talk.
There you go. I actually have gotten into an argument with somebody about this recently, who is skating the edge of supporting another illegal act, like the young man who recently died trying to get into position to maybe possibly attack the president, and it's I don't understand the mindset people get into with this. Right? There is no good outcome for any attempt at a presidential assassination other than the failure of the attempt. Even when Obama was in office, the president that I think was the actual worst president this country has ever had, I would not support something like that. And this guy's reason for supporting is the slow walk that has happened with the salacious details from the Epstein files being released to the public. Like, I'll be really blunt about this. I do not want the salacious details. I don't want to have to think about that stuff. I do want to see accountability for perpetrators. And we will find out more information probably than we ever wanted to know when that happens. And everybody keeps saying it's not going to happen, but it has started to happen. This is something that I don't think a lot of people understand the way that the justice system works either. There is no snap of the fingers and the public gets all the information and then the court case goes the way you want it to go. When there is a robbery, a murder, somebody cons a bunch of people, it doesn't happen quickly. It takes time. And when it's any kind of sexual violence, and when it's a complicated case like this, where the sexual violence is part of a method of blackmailing people for engaging in crimes against their countries, it becomes a more complex case, and it also becomes a slower information train. I understand that people were mad about the redactions, and that seems to be getting remedied. So it's not actually reasonable to continue to be mad about that. Like, oh, they fixed this. So claiming that it's still broken is kind of stupid. But in the meantime, we're seeing rhetoric over this and many other things on the side of even some Trump supporters, but the never Trumper Republicans, the woke left, and everything that has led more than once to a very young man losing his life, trying to do something stupid that actually would not help anything. Do you know what happens if somebody succeeds in that effort? We get President J.D. Vance. Do you think President J.D. Vance would do something different than President Trump? Like, do you think he's going to be easier to control? The guy that calls people dipshits on the internet from the White House? Because I don't think so. And if you do think so, you don't know Ohioans very well. So while I'm glad to see that some things are happening, right? Stuff has started. I don't expect a fast forward. It'd be great, right? It'd be nice to see a fast forward, going straight down the line. The next person is being indicted, the next person is being indicted, and so on. That has engaged in crimes. But because it is hard to sort out the difference between, who was there because they were a pedo versus who was there to trade state secrets and got blackmailed, or who was there for other reasons and got blackmailed, and who participated in the blackmailing and then claimed to be a victim versus who was an actual victim. I think that the wheels of justice are going to have to roll slowly on this in order to ensure that they don't get off track. And that's something that you have to be okay with if you care about justice and it's not about revenge and outrage porn. Like, this is probably the biggest outrage porn dump for the outrage porn crowd that has happened in our whole lifetimes. Right? But if all you care about is outrage porn, well, in my opinion, fuck you all. Because, although I don't know the experiences of the victims on Epstein Island and the Lolita Express and everything else that happened, I do know what it's like to be victimized as a kid. And I don't care how other people feel about what does or does not happen to my perpetrator. I care about two things. One is making sure the individuals involved can't commit these crimes again. That's the single most important thing to get out of it. And two, that justice is done and not a bunch of injustices because people are wallowing in outrage porn. And I hope that if those two things occur, that the victims will get peace out of it. Really, it's about the actual crimes that people committed. It's not about outrage. Outrage is a response to wrongdoing. No, it's not supposed to be a response to, somebody getting caught up in something that they didn't intend to get caught up in. It should be kept in check enough for people to behave reasonably and rationally in response to something like this. And if somebody committed treason, that is a crime with many, many more victims than what material is being used to blackmail them. Some people are probably going to be mad at me for saying that. And it doesn't matter whether it's a worse crime or not either. The fact is, the victims of treason are every man, woman, and child in the entire country. And they have a right to see justice done too. And their right to see justice done is no smaller than the right of victims of sexual violence, no matter how old or young, to see justice done. And you cannot commit an injustice against one group and call it justice for the other, no matter how outraged you are. So just hold tight and watch what happens. and judge based on outcomes, not whether or not you get more outrage porn.
Well
We
said.
got a super chat from Zaranx. I'll cover
Yeah.
it before. Some people are so deluded into thinking we're somehow civilized beyond being audience members at the arena. Many will continue believing like that. And yeah, it's true. And just like at, for instance, a comedy show, if one member of the audience stands up and starts shouting, that they'll be treated like a heckler, and the comedian will laser focus on them and destroy their soul to make sure they sit down and shut up. And if they don't, then the security will get rid of them. But if the entire audience starts booing, the security can't throw out the entire audience because then there won't be a show anymore. If the entire audience can get together and realize that what's being said is utter bullshit, and they come together and just keep booing, then the comedian will have no choice but to leave the stage. I hope I've addressed your analogy there.
All right, thank you, Zaranx, for that. And then I got a super chow from Meredith G for 5. And Meredith says, HBR News number 541. To add some color to the Andrew arrest story, Andrew got the trade envoy position at the behest of Peter Mendelsohn. Aside from the more salacious detail of this, there is every indication that the information given to Jeffrey Epstein was for the profits that could be made in trading based on those secrets. And there are indications that those running Andrew were fully aware of what Andrew was sharing with Sleazy E. Sleazy E, that's a good nickname. Yeah, I like that. That's good. All right. Well, thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Zaranx. Thank you, Mike and Hannah, for your thoughts on this. And again, yeah, I'm with Hannah. I think that these things take time, and we want to make sure that we do them right. And so, like, this is it. That also is going to mean it's going to take some time. So that if there are, if there are going to be convictions, then we have to make sure that we have our ducks in a row so that they go through to the fullest extent, right? These things take time. So anyway, be patient, and we'll follow up with any little developments that that may come of this, but that's just the way it is. So the cookie, she crumbles like a these. All right, let's move on to the next one. So I don't know if you guys know, but Mexico is on fire. Last Sunday, the Mexican government claimed responsibility for the killing of Nemesio Osegura Cervantes during an attempt to capture him and other high-ranking cartel members. Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, was the leader of the Jalisco. If people say Jalisco, but in Spanish, the J has an H sound. So it's Jalisco. And Jalisco, if you've ever been to a Mexican restaurant in America, a lot of them will have Jalisco or Jalisciense in the title. They're sort of making a reference to this place. But anyway, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, better known as the CJNG, a group that has trafficked both drugs and people, but also dabbled in cybercrime and money laundering. They're basically terrorists. They're not just like drug dealers, okay? His death sparked a torrent of cartel violence aimed at the government, law enforcement, and civilians alike. In at least 13 states, vehicles were torched, roadblocks were established, buildings were firebombed, and at least a dozen Mexican National Guards have been killed. Guadalajara, one of the larger cities in Mexico, saw enough violence that concert venues, sporting events, and even the airport had to be closed. Those poor Canadians. The U.S. has warned civilians trapped in the following states: Jalisco, Tamaulipas, Michoacan, Guerrero, and Nuevo León to shelter in place. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum stated, quote, "There is complete coordination with all the state governments. We must stay informed and calm. Activities are proceeding normally across most of the country," end quote. Oh, sounds like we need, I don't know, like some kind of barrier between us and them. I mean, just, I'm just saying, like, probably be a good idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Finish your thought, because I'm going to be going on for like a while.
Oh, well, I mean, like I mean, there's like the obvious, build a wall. There is like some other data that suggests that one of the sort of Mexican states that touches the border with America, like with the United States, that is actually like has an extremely high terror threat. It's like on par with like countries in the Middle East. So we're not like when people talk about Mexico and like why there are dangerous people there, they don't really like they think of it like, oh well, I went to, Mexico City or some tourist trap one year and I think it's beautiful and all that, but there are really dangerous like there are parts in Mexico, just like in a lot of islands in the Caribbean, where people just disappear and no one talks about it. Like Jamaica, you can disappear there. Mexico, you can disappear there. The Haiti is really bad. Honduras. So it's like it's one of these realities that I think people don't want to face about the world outside of whatever bubble you live in. And I was sort of making a joke about Canadians, but there was another statistic that showed so Canada or Canadians are not happy with Americans because of Trump, right? So they're like, they watch TV, they get told how to feel about America, and what it resulted in, at least in large parts of Canada, like Ontario, Vancouver, and Quebec, the tourism in America went down like, I don't know, 20% or something, and it went up in Mexico 11%. And the videos that have leaked about people who are trapped there, and I think it's terrible that they're in that situation, but they're all Canadians that were like, they thought that Mexico was a safer country than the United States. And my warning to that, I guess the thing that the takeaway from that is that this is like propaganda that did that, that put them in that position. So anyway, I hope they get a reality check. And it's unfortunate that this happened. And I think that it's important that we understand that Mexico is not really our friend. I mean, I'm not saying that they're our enemy, but they're not exactly like an ally. Like they've allowed this to get to this point. And I blame not the Mexican people, but entirely at the foot of the government there. So anyway, that's it. The guy from El Salvador, he was right. Bukele, he was right. And he's vindicated. So is Trump. But anyway, that's it for me.
Yeah, that segues quite well into what I'm going to say. So do these riots remind anyone of anything? Anything that happened quite recently in the United States and then all across the Western world? The fact that the drug cartels have such widespread power and influence that they can flare up such riots across the country as and when one of their holy criminals gets martyred kind of really illustrates the stranglehold they have, and that they can produce such wanton destruction at the drop of a hat. Well, isn't it funny how the same thing happened in the USA and the UK and the entire Anglosphere and in Europe when a certain criminal died from a fentanyl overdose, which ironically can probably be blamed on whosoever is importing all of the fucking fentanyl. I know it's China, but it's going through certain borders, and that includes the Mexican border. And where we should have been blaming the criminals who supplied the drug that killed him, instead the blame was all placed on the last man to interact with him on camera before he succumbed to his drug overdose, a Mr. Derek Chauvin, who only by the grace of God is still managing to survive in the slow death sentence into which he has been plunged. It goes to show you what the USA equivalent of the drug cartels is. The American equivalent of the mob of criminals who have such a violent stranglehold over the equilibrium of Western civilization. It's the race baiters. There are people dying from overdoses from cartel-tainted drugs all the fucking time. But if the race baiters in the media and the government want to create destruction and chaos and general disarray at any given time, all they have to do is pounce on the latest video footage of the tragic and untimely death of someone in their holy client group. And they'll do it again. probably just before the midterms and or just before the general election. And I say this not just to meddle in American affairs. The same shit happened in the UK from the very same people who fucking hate America and view it as the great Satan and will jump on the likes of Elon Musk every time he gives his 2 cents on the state of British politics. How dare you give your opinion on British politics? We don't want foreigners interfering in our political process. Meanwhile, a counterfeit shoplifter dies from a fentanyl overdose 4,000 miles away, and it's, well, fuck the lockdowns. We need to march on London in our thousands and start burning everything down and assaulting police horses, and we'll get away with it. And they did. And they will. It's perfectly okay if British people adopt the concerns of Americans, as long as those concerns are Marxist concerns, especially the neo-Marxist concerns of race and gender baiting Americans. I know it sounds like I'm going off on a tangent from the Mexican situation, but at least the Mexican situation is confined to Mexico. These drug cartels do seem to be agents of chaos who are subjecting Mexico to mob rule. But at least the people of the USA and the people of Europe and the people of Australia and the people of the Anglosphere in general can look at that and go, well, that seems fucked up. I do hope Mexico can sort itself out somehow. Ho-hum, I need to go to work. But for some reason, when American leftists feel like burning everything down because a petty criminal drug addict fucked around and found out, everyone needs to follow suit across the fucking globe. Look, I love America and I love Americans, but I cannot fucking stand American Marxists. I can't stand any Marxists, but when I look at the geopolitical state of the world, I can't help but notice that when the American Marxists say jump, the rest of the Western world goes how high. While, very ironically, they continue to view America as the great Satan. The truth is, they view the American right as the great Satan. They worship the American left as their god, just like they view their own right wing as Satan and their own left wing as God. And I suppose it's because the Western world realizes that the USA is like the boss of the Western world. It represents the powerhouse that we created and continues to keep us relevant and powerful. And Marxists hate that. Marxists want their own culture to be destroyed. And American leftists are the ones who will destroy it. At least they are the vanguard of the force that will destroy it. And I suppose that's why no one really gives a shit if Mexico is burning. They're like, does this help us destroy the USA? Does this help us destroy the Anglosphere? No? Then bollocks to it. Let us know next time something important happens. Like next time someone with Tourette syndrome accidentally shouts nigger during an award ceremony. That we will talk about incessantly. Thank you, by the way, for not making that a story in this week's episode. And I apologize for even bringing it up when there's important shit to be discussing. But at the same time, yeah, fuck Mexico. If you want to fix your shit, do what Bukele did. It's not that difficult, and it's not my problem. If you make it my problem, I will start giving it a shit. Hence, I give a shit when foreigners make their shit my problem. Dr. Random McCann, Mounted News, Honey Badger Radio.
Man, there's a lot of other things that can be said about this, but I think the most important thing in the U.S. is the fire that we see on the screen is kind of symbolic because Mexico's been on fire for decades. And I've gone off about this before. All right. If there were no consumers, there would be no industry. You can't sell something if you don't have buyers. You can't make a profit on something if you don't have the ability to sell it, because nobody will buy it from you. So everything that's going on in Mexico, while the Mexican government corruption and the willingness of people to participate, to get involved in basically the cartel lifestyle, and I know a lot of people now are impressed into it, would be probably the best way to put it. But there's a lot of people who choose it. Right? None of that would be able to happen if it wasn't for the fact that shit tons of spoiled ass college kids in the United States are buying their products. That stuff wouldn't exist if you didn't consume it. It's great that the Mexican government took out one leader. The thing that sucks is that somebody will probably step up to take his place. And none of this is going to be cured until we solve our shit here. And I do place blame not just on the people who are selling, but also on the buyers. And yeah, I know it's not all about drugs. I know that there's also a contingent of very wealthy Americans who are buying people from these cartels and using them as slaves. Right? And the people who are protesting the hardest against stopping that are those same spoiled ass American college kids who want to pretend that it's nice to allow that to continue and that it's evil to put a stop to it, because it might mean that some people who migrated here illegally to work under the table get sent home. It's bullshit. You're accountable. You're responsible. If you support having no border here, if you support allowing traffic to cross unvetted and unmitigated, all of the horrors that are perpetrated by these cartels on the people in their cities, in their, I can't remember what it's called in Mexico, but it's like counties in the U.S. or states in the U.S. But they are doing that, and they're able to do it because of you. I don't have any sympathy when I see people going off and getting all teary-eyed over somebody getting exported or getting deported. I don't care. Don't encourage people to come here illegally, and do not support a system that facilitates human trafficking. And especially don't do that and then tell me how outraged you are over the Epstein files. Because everything that happened on Epstein Island, Mexico is one big fucking Epstein Island. It's worse because people are just being grabbed off of the street or out of their cars or out of their homes and murdered. There are gangs there that practice human sacrifice to weird gods that are all about death. They think that it protects them from the police. What really is protecting them from the police is payoffs and police involvement in their crimes. Right? But they are still killing people, and they're torturing them to death. If you cross them or you witness the wrong thing, you can end up beheaded there. It is every bit as bad in terms of the salacious details that people want from the Epstein files. The only thing that's not happening there is people trading state secrets. Right? There's not treason happening there that we know of. But we do know that they are selling children for sex, and that there are buyers in the United States who are paying them to bring children here to be used as sex slaves. We do know that they are selling adults and children for labor, and that there are buyers here in the United States who are paying for slaves to be transported illegally across the border. We know that. We do know that they are transporting deadly substances across the border. We do know that if somebody decided they wanted to kill everyone in the United States, all they would have to do is conspire with the cartels to get enough fentanyl in here that they could get it into our water system. And everybody would be kaput. Right? We do know that. And as long as you have temper tantrums because we have a president who is trying to secure the border and who is prioritizing that over salacious details being released to the public, then, you're at fault. Every time a kid is sold to an adult to be abused, your rhetoric helped make that happen. So it is really time for the wimpy college students that will throw bricks through windows and loot stores every time something happens that the news media tells them that they shouldn't like. It's about time for you to step up, understand what's going on in the world, and figure out what to really care about. Because this is just one little drop in a big fucking bucket of blood.
All right. Yeah. It's definitely part of a wider trend that we're seeing. And I think that, I don't know, sometimes the world has to fall apart a little bit in order for us to see what's really wrong with it. So we'll have to see what happens. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're going to move on to the next bit of chaos. It's a little bit of a global show this week. We did a little UK, a little Mexico. Now we're going to go to France and talk a little bit about something that's happened in France recently that's also creating some chaos. Like, it's like things are getting a little, like they're busting at the seams, as it were. Quentin Deranc, I hope I'm not butchering that, a 23-year-old French mathematics student and nationalist activist, called far right, of course, affiliated with groups like Allobroges Borogin and formerly Action Francois, I guess, or Francaise, I don't know, was fatally beaten in Lyon on February 12th, 2026. The attack occurred outside a conference venue where Rima Hassan, a member of the European Parliament from the the Left France Unbowed Party, it's like LFI, I guess they call it, was speaking. Deranc had reportedly been protecting members of there's apparently a feminist anti-immigration group that was protesting the event, and he was protecting members of that group. He suffered severe traumatic brain injuries after being thrown to the ground and assaulted by at least 6 individuals described as Antifa militants. He died in the hospital 2 days later on February 14th, happy Valentine's Day, from major cranial trauma, sparking widespread shock, tributes, and marches in his memory, drawing thousands in Lyon and intensifying France's political divisions ahead of upcoming elections. French authorities launched a murder investigation leading to the arrest of 11 suspects, with some reports citing up to 11 in custody or under investigation, including a parliamentary aide to an LFI politician. So there are people that are part of the actual political party there, and members linked to far left groups like Le Jeune Garde. Several face charges related to murder or complicity, while others are probed for aiding evasion. The incident has drawn international attention, including U.S. criticism of radical left violence from Trump. Of course, CNN, one of the people who covered the story, lamented that. He called it far left, even though that's what it was. From figures across the spectrum, and debates over political responsibility, particularly for LFI, which has distanced itself from the violence. President Emmanuel Macron urged calm amid rising tensions, far-right rallies, and calls for potential group dissolutions, highlighting broader concerns about escalating political violence in France. So one of the reasons why I brought this up is because we're seeing this stuff happening, and these are in countries where they're like further down the road here, like the road to this sort of like globalist project. And what you think will happen in America, like the United States, you're going to see it happening in Europe first, or you're going to see it happening in countries like South Korea. When I talked about the replacement rates of natives and the problems with birth rates, I said, well, just look at South Korea because they're in worse shape than us. And so this is in a way an opportunity for Americans, or from people from the U.S. to look at that and say, oh, that's where we're headed. We can change course, right? So if you want to know where sort of like unfettered radical far left Antifa extremism goes, you can look at stuff that's going on in countries like France, where they're overcome by this ideologically, but the people are starting to stand up. And the way that they're being presented in the news, like they're just calling everybody far right. I hope you guys understand by now that that's a meaningless term. It's only a way of saying you can kill these people. It's okay. Like that's the only reason they say it, is to say you can kill these people because they are the bad people that believe the bad things, and you are a good person that believes the good things. And I know that sounds childish because it is. So I'm saying, absolute tragedy. I don't care what the guy's politics were. There is no excuse for this. So there's no point in trying to paint it a certain way. But if you want to know where you're going, look, and you don't live in Europe, look at what's going on in Europe. If you want to know where we're going in terms of like, the strained relationship between men and women, look at countries like South Korea. Look at Spain, which I think we talked about. They're absolutely, cucked when it comes to this kind of stuff. And even the United Kingdom is not as far along, at least I don't think, as parts of Europe. Europe is essentially like a defeated continent at this point. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that. Yeah, South Korea. Yeah, South Korea's birth rates are awful. And the guy who ran for president, that they were like the president of Korea, I didn't cover it as a story, but I forget his name, but he was like the sort of like, conservative front runner or whatever, and he was president for a while, and they were calling him a misogynist and shit, and that was like the narrative they used to like replace him. He is under investigation for insurrection in Korea now. There's no evidence of anything. They're just trying to eliminate him so he's no longer an obstacle. Even North Korea wouldn't allow that. So just to give you an idea, North Korea's birth rates are better than South Korea's. Now, maybe Kim Jong-un is lying, but I think that there's probably some cause to believe that could be true. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. I'll give the floor to you guys.
Makes you wonder about Japan and how they were able to vote for I don't know what the name of the leader is in Japan. Like
I think they're presidents in Japan. They have presidents too.
But yeah, they managed to get a right-wing one in, and they're not going to be able to assassinate her because she's a her. And imagine the headlines if a woman was assassinated. Because yeah, in Japan and South Korea, they have the same fucking gynocentric problems that we have over here. But anyway, to get back to the story. So Emmanuel Macron wants to exercise his free speech. Does he? I hope you all know where I'm going with this. He wants to tell people what he thinks about the world and what he thinks should be done about its state of affairs. Well, allow me to pull up a quote. Let's see, what was it? Oh, yeah. Free speech is a pure bullshit. Nobody knows how you are guided through this so-called free speech. Permit me a rebuttal, Mr. Macron. Free speech is not guided. It is not led down a garden path in whatever linear direction it is permitted. Free speech can explore wheresoever it endeavors to explore. That is what free means. And if the press was truly free to cover whatever story is pertinent, we wouldn't be talking about this incident as though it's some kind of anomaly. Do we seriously think this is the first time someone has died at the hands of Antifa? I put it to you that this is a bullshit. People are constantly getting beaten and robbed and murdered at the hands of far leftists, pretending to be nothing but anti-far rightists. It's just that the media doesn't cover it because the media is controlled by far leftists pretending to be nothing but anti-far rightists. We're constantly told that Antifa isn't a thing. It's not an organization. It's just an idea. Okay, let's take that notion on board. Let's wear it like a hat. If Antifa is just an idea, then it encompasses everything that comes with that idea, and that includes mass migration. What does that mean? It means that everyone who has been killed by this mass of immigrants is a victim of this idea that has been implemented under the guise of anti-fascism and doubled down on and tripled down on under the guise of anti-fascism. The idea that national sovereignty should not be a thing because national sovereignty is just fascism after all. So if Antifa is just an idea, then there's no telling how much it has to answer for, how many deaths it has to answer for, not to mention rapes and stabbings and beatings that stopped just short of death. There's no telling because the legacy media doesn't tell it. You could go to the legacy media, regaling them with your story of how you were stabbed and beaten and raped, but they won't run with that kind of story because that kind of story is racist. The wrong kind of racism, I mean. I got raped by a Frenchman. Okay, stay right there. Here's 100 grand. Tell me everything. But I got raped by an Algerian. Oh, no, mon amour. That is racist. Stop in the name of the law. And it's the same in Britain, by the way, but in a different accent. I'm not casting the first stone or nothing. But the point is, there's a difference between Antifa and the hordes of foreign mercenaries appointed by a nominally anti-fascist government. Antifa is composed of almost entirely Europeans, white oikophobes, if you will. The various North Africans and Middle Easterns don't need to join Antifa. They have their own thing going on. They can just assemble as a proud group of patriots, uniting under a banner of what is essentially xenophobia. And it's okay for faraway nations to be xenophobic, even when they are invading your own Western nation, because, West bad, everyone else good. Whereas Antifa, I mean, those who fly the anarcho-syndicalist flag of Antifa, in some sense, they are the good guys because they too are protesting against whatever Western nation is in question. But they also happen to be white. They happen to be native. So they have to be very careful not to kill anyone they're not supposed to kill. I mean, they can kill Andy Ngo. That's fine. Gay Asians don't count. Just like people with Tourette's don't count. Consult the progressive stack. Gays don't present a legitimate threat to our national sovereignty, nor do disabled people. And Asians, well, there's a difference between their government and their people. And their people just come here and mind their own business, and they score well on the SATs. So fuck them. To see if I can channel Gavin Newsom. You can't exactly pander to Asians by saying, I'm just like you, I score high on exams. See, that would sound lofty, almost confrontational. But you can go ahead and say, I'm just like you, I'm a dumbass nigger who can't even read. And apparently that's fine. Because it's just, patronizing. It's absolutely fine to be a condescending prick to people who pose no existential threat, but you cannot and may not criticize those people who are actually colonizing your nation. They're doing God's work, you see, Allah's work, if you will, inshallah. But so, yeah, I suppose this is a breakthrough case because Antifa killed a native man, although they've clearly done that several times already before, but this time it actually somehow got picked up by journalists. It was apparently unavoidable. And yeah, I hope the legacy media can actually pick up on this idea and run with it, that the general populace might discover just how violent and murderous these oikophobic communist mobs really are. A boy can dream, and I will dream. And that is all I will do. Excuse me, I need to sleep now. Perchance to dream.
All right,
right.
Hannah.
Everything Mike said, everything Brian said. But one more thing. I want to draw your attention to one of the details in the story that has been only given minor attention, and that is that the victim had reportedly been protecting members of a far-right feminist anti-immigration group protesting the event. So, guys, I realize that when you're in a large group of people and you're all in agreement about what needs to be protested and discussed and drawn to the attention of the public and made embarrassing for the public officials, when and all that, realize that there will be members of the group that will step up to provide security because you're going to face violent opposition. Completely understand that. But this is part of it. This is something that you have to really carefully consider before you decide that you're the guy who should be protecting the women of the group. This guy lost his life. And the biggest takeaway from it seems to be labeling him something that is used to condemn people as bad guys, right? Not this guy heroically sacrificed himself for these women's safety. And we don't even know if they still faced violence or not. So we don't even know if he was successful in protecting them or if his efforts at protection didn't stop the violence. Because that's not really reported in the story. But don't let women use you as a shield unless you're okay with this happening to you. If you're not, and in my opinion you shouldn't be, then if you want to protect the women in your life, you teach them to defend yourselves. Or you teach them to not go into violent environments, not go into violent protests. Not protests where the protest itself is violent, but where the opposition is. Convince them instead to make appointments and go talk to politicians, to post on the internet from their homes, to go to news media and talk to them, or to find a way to do public events without allowing violence in. Because there is no reason why men should be sacrificed this way. At the same time, everybody who's suddenly starting to realize that all around the world there is an actual violent war taking place between communists and anti-communists. Welcome to the room where everybody knows what's going on. Like the rest of us has known that for quite a long time, years. For those that denied it and are suddenly figuring it out based on this kind of violence, I told you so. And got laughed at for it. This is happening everywhere. Neighborhoods are being attacked. Protesters are being attacked. In the United States, we had whole neighborhoods burned down over this. Right? And it was communists versus non-communists and anti-communists, where the violence was on the communist side of things. And it is everywhere else as well. Right? The whole population of the world is at war over whether or not communism is going to be imposed on us. And if you think that the best use of your time is to make it possible that a bunch of chicks can feel tough and strong by going out and joining a protest against the communists, even at the risk of your life, you're wrong. Because the communists will trample you and then badmouth you, and your legacy will be being called quote unquote far right. That's not good. Even if what this guy did was admirable from the sense of he was trying to increase the safety of people in his group. Don't be a simp. Don't be gynocentric about this. It's not worth it. If there has to be fighting done, don't rely on women to be a part of it, because they're not going to be able to protect you. And your efforts at protecting them might just cost you your life. The best use of women's ability to protest, the best use of women's ability to fight this type of war, this type of information war, either has to be done in all women groups that don't use men for protection, or in social pressure, which is the thing that women are the most solid expert at of anything that women can do. And men may even do that better. It's just that women do that a lot better than they do violence, and a lot better than they handle violence. And it's a lot better if women do that than if they get some guy killed trying to protect them from crazy communist assholes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your feedback on that. Let's see if there's any. Nobody sent any super chats or super chows. I am disappointed. That's okay. But you still have time. We have one more story to get through. So send in those super chows if you are interested in sharing your commentary. I'm gonna have to end it with something a little bit closer to home, but pretty dark. Although there's a justice behind it as well. So let us know what you guys think about that one in the comments. Moving on to the next story. On February 17th, 2026, Kenosha County judge sentenced 34-year-old Anna Marie Crocker, a former teacher's aide at Riverview Elementary School in Silver Lake, Wisconsin, to 51.5 years in prison, followed by 32 years of extended supervision for multiple child sex crimes. Crocker pleaded guilty in December to 7 felonies, including first-degree child sexual assault, second-degree sexual assault of a child enticement, and child sexual exploitation involving filming. So she was filming herself with children. The offenses involved the sexual assault and manipulation of 4 young boys. Age ranges from 12 to 16, including incidents like assaulting a 12-year-old during a sleepover at her home and targeting friends of her own son. Judge David Hughes described her actions harshly, stating she, quote, sought out children, she used children, and she took advantage of children, end quote, and noted she would not be eligible for release until her 80s, requiring lifelong sex offender registration. Crocker, a mother of 4, tearfully expressed remorse in court, apologizing and attributing her behavior partly to drugs and alcohol, though she showed little emotion during the sentencing. Case, which shocked the tight-knit Silver Lake community after her 2024 arrest, has drawn significant media attention for the severity of the sentence and the betrayal of trust by a school staffer in a position of authority. Prosecutors and the judge emphasized the predatory nature of the crimes, with one parent speaking out about the lasting impact on victims and the community. All right. The only thing really, like, these stories of like people, women in education that prey on boys, we cover them a lot. We're just, I'm personally, I picked them specifically to highlight the fact that this does happen, so that we don't allow anyone to forget that and try to diminish that or minimize that. And the other thing I'll say is that if any of these boys later on go on to offend, like sexually offend, we can point to this as likely a large contributing factor to that behavior, even though no one wants to do that, because when men commit crimes, it's in a vacuum, it comes from nowhere, or it's just in their nature to do that thing. When women commit crimes, it's because something happened to them. All of a sudden, we care about the context or their early life experience. And I'm just going along with what, people like Aaron Pitsey and Warren Farrell and others have said many times is, when you look at men who are on death row, men who are serving long sentences for violent crimes, over 90 to 95% of them have had an abuse in their history and don't have a father. So I'm not saying that's what happened with these kids here, but odds are if they're like, engaging in, I don't know, if she's got them sleeping over and stuff, there's something about that means that there isn't someone to sort of like at least check out the situation to make sure that those children are going to be safe at this other strange home. So anyway, Metal Wolf, thank you for the gifts. Gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Metal Wolf. Appreciate it. All right, so I will give the floor up to whoever wants to speak.
I haven't written anything down for this because I just stared at this story thinking, I can't keep doing this. We get one of these stories every couple of fucking weeks. But while you were reading it out, it made me think of the context of the Epstein bullshit. And like I said in the first story, how the noncery is just used as a form of blackmail, surrounding the sharing of state secrets, which was mostly what the Epstein network was always about. It was just getting impulsive, naive, posh cunts to reveal state secrets using noncery as the point of blackmail. And when you compare that to what's going on in schools and indeed in families where single women are in charge, when you compare it to the Catholic Church or even the Muslim mosque or whatever the equivalent of the Catholic Church is, people like to fucking joke about the Catholic Church and how many mainly boys have been, altar boys have been abused under the guise of this virtue of merely being in this institution. Compare it all to what the fuck is going on in schools right now. And yes, I mean the Epstein files. Yes, there have been nonces on the Epstein Island over the course of the last few decades. And even if they're all guilty, even if all the people I spoke about who were just, tricked into fake noncery, consider all the women who have committed actual noncery. They weren't blackmailed. They weren't coerced into doing something else under the guise of noncery. They were given every opportunity to just teach children because they were trusted to just teach children. And what did they do? They fucking nonced a bunch of children. And yeah, maybe they only nonced like a dozen children each. But when you stack it all up across all these countries where it's been happening, they get away with it. And not because they're rich, right? Not because they're fucking Jewish billionaires or whatever. It fucking doesn't matter what race they are or what religion they are. They're women, and so they get to teach. Teach children, but they get to be teachers of children as an occupation while they do whatever the fuck they like. Largely because there's so many gaps in the opportunities to become teachers, because men keep getting pushed out of these roles because they keep getting falsely accused of noncery, and so, because there's so many gaps, those gaps keep getting filled with women. Any women. It doesn't matter if they're qualified. It doesn't matter if they're just women who want to nonce boys. They just get to be teachers. It's much like prison screws. Like it doesn't matter if they're just women who want to abuse captive men because criminals are what turn them on. Well, I know this is hard for a lot of people to hear, but just like there are a lot of women who are attracted to bad boys of the age of consent, there are a lot of women who are attracted to bad boys below the age of consent, or just attracted to any boys below the age of consent. Yeah, because they don't have the psychological wherewithal to know what the fuck is going on. And like the Catholic Church is nothing. Epstein Island is nothing. I would even go so far as to say Islam is nothing compared with the epidemic of predatory women who go into this profession or don't even need to go into this profession because they have an unending stream of psychologically broken boys who they can just abuse and get away with it. And yes, every few weeks we have a story of some female teacher who was finally brought to justice. But this seems pretty obviously the tip of the iceberg, folks. The tip of an absolutely huge iceberg that we've only just begun to uncover. It's not just an iceberg that exists now. It's an iceberg that existed for decades. Because it's not as though people clamped down on female pedophiles 30 years ago or fucking 60 years ago. No, there's never been a mechanism in our society for clamping down on female pedos because it's always been assumed that pedos are just men. The pedo is just a male archetype. That pedophilia is just something that males do to women and occasionally boys. No, it's I mean, this could very well go back thousands of years. Maybe tens of thousands of years. I don't even fucking know. Because there's something about gynocentrism, and I don't know how far this gynocentrism goes back, that just assumes that women would never do anything sinister or destructive to men or boys. And this is why we're fighting such an uphill battle against this shit. That the women will rape boys and then get away with it, and then those raped boys, a small percentage of them will go on to become, dare I say, rapists. And then when they commit rapes, everyone goes, oh my God, look at this epidemic of male rapists. Where is this possibly coming from? We must educate males to stop raping, where what we really need to do is educate women to stop raping boys. But no one ever does that. Not here, not in the Muslim world, not in the fucking Epstein world, fucking none of it. We're all suffering from the same delusional, poisoned idea that women have no ill intentions when it comes to men and boys. You have no fucking idea. If only you could imagine how bad it really is. And this is the longest I've ever talked without a script. I think I've said everything. Hannah, say something. I know you're champing.
Yeah, there's actually a lot to say about this that isn't directly related to the sex crimes. And when Mike says, if only you knew how bad it really is, there's some things you have to understand. Raping boys is one of the worst things that female teachers do to boys and get away with most of the time. Right? Another one of the worst things they do is discriminate in discipline. Boys are far more likely for the same behaviors to be given detentions, to be given in school or out of school suspensions, to get expelled, to have the police called on them, and end up in juvenile detention, where they will be potentially raped by the female staff there. 95 to 98% of sexual misconduct, staff sexual misconduct reported by inmates at juvenile detention facilities is female perpetrated, despite the fact that less than half of the staff is female. And staff sexual misconduct outnumbers inmate on inmate at male facilities. Inmate on inmate outnumbers staff sexual misconduct at female facilities. Female teachers, another one of the worst things that female teachers do. Boys are 1/3 more likely to be graded higher on a reading test when the teacher does not know that the person who took the test is a boy. That is straight out of The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell. Right? I was just reminded of that when one of Rollo Tomasi's tweets or posts on X popped up in my feed. I don't usually see stuff from him, but somebody I follow retweeted that, and I had it wasn't something that I had forgotten, but I hadn't thought about that in a long time. So you have this trifecta of evil that is being done to boys in schools. They are treated as if they have not learned what they have learned. So part of boys doing more poorly in school than girls are doing is that their progress isn't actually being noted. Right? They are being abused. They are being psychologically abused by being treated as if their actions are worse because they're boys. So the same actions, the same behaviors are worse and less tolerable because they're boys. And then they are facing sexual violence. And you can actually add a fourth thing too, because boys are more reliant on discovery learning than girls. Boys are more innovative. They have more of that risk-taking tendency. They're more explorative. And so when you're teaching, for instance, about biology and you want to teach how the lungs work, you can get by with girls with, putting a picture of a pair of lungs and describing it. They can pass your tests by filling out answers by rote. This is what the alveoli are. This is what the various parts of the bronchial tubes are, and so on. This is all the functions, and they can remember things word for word. This is how it was written in the book, so this is the answer I'm going to say on the test. and they can pass the test. And boys will get a full understanding of all of that if you explain it while you have a sheep's lung on the table that you allow them to use little straws like coffee stir sticks to blow into so they can see them inflate. And, not all female teachers are bad. The teacher that did that for my class was female, but she was old school. And she raised boys of her own. But in reality, most of her teaching was still geared toward the female style of learning. We did a lot of written reports and shit. But the bottom line is the education system, the feminized education system, is designed for boys to fall through the cracks and to not catch abuse of boys. And our society doesn't like to recognize abuse of boys. And it doesn't like to talk about it. And the really difficult thing is people will cite statistics. Oh, this happens to girls much, much more often. You see, this statistic says one in 5 women and 1 in 6 men faces forced coitus, and 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys is sexually abused as a child. But something that you don't realize, there's been a study, and this is something Allison has been talking about for years as well. One of her co-writers on her old blog, Gender Attic, before the Honey Badger Brigade formed, pointed this out. And there's an article about it on A Voice for Men. I believe it was titled Manufacturing Female Victims and Marginalizing Vulnerable Men. But when male victims of childhood sexual abuse are asked about it later in their adulthood, they are 16 times more likely than female victims are to have pushed it out of their minds and forgotten that it happened on purpose. Forgotten. Not it slipped their minds, but actually blocked it out. Or to rewrite things in their minds to take accountability away from the perpetrator and adopt it into themselves as if they could have consented. And so when adult men are asked about their childhood sexual experiences, those questions, if those questions are coming up with a set of responses that leads to statistics like 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys, just remember that that number of boys might actually be significantly higher than reported. If they're asking adults what happened when they were kids, that number it represents those that haven't blocked it out and haven't rewritten it in their heads. And a statistic that goes along with that, right? In a survey of college age women that were asked about varying degrees of sexual aggression, from just being assertive but not aggressive to full on attacking someone with a weapon to get sex against their will. 3 in 10 said that they had exploited an underage boy for sex when they were not underage. 3 in 10. By the time the perpetrators were in college. And it indicates that that's not all of the perpetrators. Some people with reprehensible impulses resist them for years before they eventually perpetrate. If they never get any kind of treatment, if they never go for any kind of help to get out of the mentality that causes those impulses, eventually they will perpetrate. And this is what happens. Then you end up, they go into some area, whether it's teaching or being an educator in a church, being in caregiving like daycare centers. There's a lot of abuse that takes place in daycare centers, all kinds of stuff like that, and they'll find themselves in a situation that they put themselves in, where those impulses override their level of intelligence and their ability to control themselves, right? And that's what happens in these schools. So honestly, the feminization of the school system is responsible for a significant amount of damage to boys, and in their adulthood, then they are walking wounded, and that all of the dysfunction, it's not just boys who grow up to become perpetrators. They're not the only ones whose whole life is changed as a result of this. Right? You have guys who have been molested, guys who have been sexually abused when they're young, are up to 14 times more likely to commit suicide. They're the percentage of likelihood of becoming perpetrators isn't stated in the research that I've seen, but there is a disproportionate level of being victimized in the histories of perpetrators, but it's nothing like the disproportionate number of them that commit suicide, and that's overt suicide that people recognize as suicide. They are up to 44 times more likely to abuse intoxicating substances. They start earlier, and they're more likely to indulge more than other people. That's a form of slow suicide, right? It is an absolutely horrific. It is a wrecking ball to a boy's mind to do this to him. Right? Boys that have been molested or otherwise sexually exploited, they're more likely to have difficulty making relationships as adults. They're more likely to have difficulty at work. They're more likely to have difficulty in school, even if it doesn't take place in school. Academic difficulty, like, it affects every aspect of their trajectory in life. So, it isn't a minor thing. It isn't nice. It isn't funny. It isn't something they should have to be ashamed of. And they're not being wimps when they complain about this. It is a profound psychological wound. And it is one of many that is inflicted by the feminization of the education system. And the only way to protect your children from that, if you can homeschool them, homeschool them. If you can't homeschool them, know everything they are doing at school. Be close to the people that are engaging with them. Make sure those people know that you could show up at any moment, that they are not ever safe being alone with your kid and doing anything that you wouldn't approve, because you might find out the next second. You might walk in the door the next second. If your kid's part of an after-school activity, stop in unannounced and to observe the activity. If the teacher complains, ask what they're hiding. But that's all you can really do. If it turns out that your kid is with a teacher that is doing something bad, and that's without us touching the gender shit, right? Because that's abuse too. Telling a kid that they might be born in the wrong body. They're doing that to both sexes. They're deliberately confusing the youth, that's abuse as well. And that is sexual abuse. That is sexually predatory behavior. You, as the parent, have the right to be fully informed what is going on with your child at school. If they tell you you're not entitled to certain information about your child's education, you go to your state board or your local board of education, you go to your state board of education, you go to your local whatever news station it is that reports on government overreach and so on, and raise a fuss. You go to other parents and raise a fuss because there is no information about your child's education that you don't have a right to. And it is, as a parent, more than anything, it is your responsibility to have that information, to get that information. And if you know what the stakes are, because I just described what happens to boys in that system. It is a meat grinder that chews up the future adults, the future inventors, innovators, teams that create, teams that build, and spits out walking wounded that are malleable, manipulatable, easier to take advantage of, likely to commit suicide, and unlikely or less likely to succeed in life because of what has been done to them. And like, our school system needs significant reform. And in the meantime, one of the best ways to pressure it is for parents that can homeschool to homeschool. And this is coming from an opponent of homeschooling historically. I used to vehemently oppose homeschooling. The more I understood about the way the school system works, the more I looked into men's rights and how education hinders boys, public education hinders boys, the more pro homeschooling I have become. So there you go.
You can homeschool people using, I dare to say, YouTube. I know there's a lot of bullshit on YouTube, but there's a lot of educational content as well. It kind of sucks that people are putting their children in front of fucking Coco Melon and all this bullshit that's just singing nonsense at them all the time. Where you could put them in front of educational content, and there is educational content for all ages on YouTube. Like, if you're going to pacify your children by putting them in front of YouTube videos, there's all manner of educational shit that you could do. And it's just like, you could send them to a university to get educated, when all you ever needed to do was send them to a library. And no one goes to libraries anymore because they've been made redundant by the masses of educational content online. It doesn't need to be YouTube. It could be, it can be anything. You should probably give them Rumble shit or BitChute shit or whatever.
You don't even have to do that. When I was 2 years old, my dad gave me an Olympus Pen E half frame camera on a 35 millimeter roll of film. It got 2 images per 35 millimeter frame. And he was doing photography for the local newspaper. So he was a professional photographer. He had started photographing weddings. This would have been in 1974. So he was already photographing weddings. He gave me that, and he started teaching me about composition. So you teach a 2-year-old, you could teach a 2-year-old about composition, but a 2-year-old's not going to understand the relationships between lighting and aperture and shutter speed, film speed, and all that. But that was when he started teaching me a trade. And by 15 years old, actually, technically by 7 years old, I had earned money with it. I was at a wedding with my parents. I had my camera, and there was a maid of honor, not maid of honor, the little girl that carries the flowers, flower girl. She had the cutest dress, and I just thought it was adorable. She looked like a little princess, and we were playing, and she was doing the little girly thing of twirling and showing off the dress and everything. And so I had her pose for me, and I took pictures while she did that. And one of those pictures was just so adorable, they put it in the wedding album. And my parents told me that they put my picture in the wedding album and they gave me money for it. So they taught me to earn money using my photography. And by 15, I had a job that I was doing photography for income. And I had an almost 30-year career in professional photography, including sports journalism, wedding photography, portrait photography, commercial photography, news photography, and it was great. I earned money doing that. That was part of what fed my family when the government was keeping, my husband's income away from him. And every parent should be doing this with their kid, even if it's not, quite as blatant as that. If you're an accountant, you should show your kids what you're doing as soon as they're old enough to understand it. As soon as they're old enough to start understanding it. Farm kids do that. They do chores on the farm. They learn how to farm. My classmate, his father was a very successful farmer. And when his sons graduated, he gave them acreage.
Yeah, this is what parents did for like all of history before schools existed.
Exactly.
Like schools didn't exist, especially not for working class families, until like a century ago. Parents just taught their children what they knew, and they generally did know something about some kind of trade because everyone was into some kind of trade. Everyone existed within the oikos, like homes, family homes, and family businesses were all one and the same. Hence the Greek word oikos. It's not just home. It's, like I said, it's family home and family business and family enterprise. You don't necessarily need to know everything about the world. It's not as though that's what schools even teach children, but only in the last century or two has every children been obliged, almost on pain of punishment, to send their children to government institutions where they're told, this is what you must believe about geography, this is what you must believe about history, this is what you must believe about socio-political hot potatoes. And at this point, that means science is what we say it is, and that means men can be women and women can be men, and that's their idea of science right now. And that's how far it's gone. Like, do people actually need to know this tiny amount of information about every subject?
Well,
Like,
if they do, there's materials you can get for that. K-12. And the nice thing about having those materials and teaching at home is that when you run across things that are political instead of educational, you can alter what the curriculum is in your home from what the curriculum is in the materials that you receive.
Yeah, dare I say, progressive development of this is children should be able to do whatever they want. It doesn't matter what their parents were into. If their children are into something else, they should be given every opportunity to pursue that career. And yeah, there's something about that, but there's only so much information you can fit in a human head, and there's a reason we've worked so well for so many thousands of years with children mostly learning a specialist subject. I mean, this is what universities and colleges are for, learning a specific subject. Well, parents can teach their children a specific subject if it's the specific subject they are interested in, and they can do that. They can give their legacy to their children, And if they want to learn other things, like I said, at this point, they have every opportunity to learn other things. And as long as the parents who are homeschooling their children, like, mainly teach them what they know to be true, and they can also give them downtime to watch these billions of videos about other things. And if they want to pursue those other things, yeah, then we can send them to these specific schools that teach them about other things. Like if your parents are plumbers, then they can, independently freelance plumbers. Then those parents are in a position to teach those children how to be independent freelance plumbers. But if they don't want to do that, then okay, well, here's all the information in the world. Like we are blessed to be in a futuristic society where you can learn everything about the world, and like I said, you can supply children with all the information in the world about all the subjects in the world. Like, what the fuck do we need schools for anymore? All schools are doing is telling children what the government insists that they learn. And that's not that's that's proved to be an unreliable narrator. Like when it comes to these things. So,
Yeah.
like, you have every opportunity. Like, homeschooling is easier than it ever was. Like 50 years ago, you might have had an argument as to how it's difficult to homeschool children because you need to look things up in a library or whatever. But yeah, no, it's we have all the benefits of the old world and the new world, and we can give all of these things to children. And the last thing we need to do is sit them in front of a government-regulated fucking propaganda program and have them believe everything that they're told to believe by the very cunts that are embroiled in the Epstein files. Like
Yeah.
none of this is necessary.
By the way, while we're talking about education, if you happen to know a young man, probably this would be good for maybe 15, 16 or up, somebody who's not quite a man, that you are getting gifts for birthday or Christmas or something, that is inclined to actually sit and read. There's a book. Don't let his mom read it. Don't let his girlfriend or future wife read it, because you'll get in trouble. But it's called Bachelor Pad Economics by Aaron Clary, and it is essential information for young men. Girls won't like it. It's not gynocentric, and there are things in it that if you got an ego and you're female, it becomes. I'm sure it would be a little hard to hear, a little hard to read. If you don't have an ego and you're female, you learn things that are important that you didn't realize were important. But most women are narcissistic, so they wouldn't like it. But Bachelor Pad Economics by Aaron Clary is, in my opinion, something that every guy should read before he gets old enough to sign up for military, university, start his first permanent job, not part-time after school job, but full-time. You're not going to school, you're just doing this job. It's a very, very carefully considered set of facts and information that boys and men can use as a guide for avoiding debt and avoiding other things that are really not beneficial to them in their future. So yes, Bachelor Pad Economics, a financial advice Bible for men. That is correct. And like I said, it's by Aaron Clary. It's on Amazon, and I highly recommend that book. I managed to get a hold of a copy at ICMI 2014 as a door prize. And I got it because somebody else didn't claim it. And whoever didn't claim it missed out. I read half of it while I was waiting for my bus home in the bus station in Detroit. Just the first half of it was enough to convince me that my son needed to read it, and I gave it to him. It is excellent information, and definitely, like if you're raising a son, make sure he reads it. If you have influence on a developing, near adult who can understand everything in it, make sure he reads it.
All right. Well, thanks, Hannah, for that. And thanks, you guys, for your commentary. We are now going to go into the patron show to check this video out that Allison gave me. So
there's another super chat from Zaranx.
Yeah, I was going to read the super chats.
Okay.
I did get one. I put it up on the screen. So Zaranx gave us 10 and says, but Hannah, government needs schools to be able to encourage school kids to be useful as they are for anti-ICE protests towards them getting the pretty good treatment for cause against dislike polls. Yes.
Yep. They need the schools to make kids more exploitable in adulthood.
Yep.
Yeah.
To turn them into martyrs for revolutionary causes that those teachers don't ever actually have to sign checks for. So, yeah, it's sad state of affairs, I swear. But we're gonna end the show there. So thank you for that. Let me just double check, make sure I didn't miss any super chats or super chows. It looks clear here.
I suppose homeschoolers can also encourage their children into activism, but at least they won't get expelled in the event that they don't do it.
Yeah.
They're also less likely to send kids into an environment that they've been spouting off on social media about as a dangerous and potentially deadly environment. Most people don't choose to send their own kids into that type of environment, right? It's other people's kids. That's why you hear about schools letting kids leave the classrooms to join anti-ICE protests, even though the teachers that are so hell-bent on doing that are the ones that are like, oh, ICE is shooting people without cause randomly. And then they're sending your teenagers to go join the protests that they're claiming are getting shot at by ICE. Either they don't believe what they're saying about ICE, or they don't care about your child's life, or the third possibility is both.
If your kids are in school, get them expelled for saying the wrong things, and then and then you won't get arrested for not sending them to school. In the event that you live in one of the many countries where it's illegal not to send your children to state schools.
It's true. But anyways, thank you to Mike and Hannah for your commentary. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a longer than normal sausage, so we're gonna head into the patron show now. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. And yeah, with that said, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.
Please give this video a like and subscribe!